Man, how are y'all feeling? You feeling good?
Yeah.
I feel real good. Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
Mason, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm Zoe. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So good.
No, Christoph.
I'm Christoph.
Yeah.
And hey, guys, we're super glad that you just tuned in for just a little bit. I've got my friends here, Mason and Zoe. And Mason, I've known for a little bit, last couple of years. And he is our college pastor at Crosspoint. And then Zoe, just tell us what you do a little bit.
I am the youth minister at Bethelwood Outreach Church, which is where I know Christoph from because we used to serve together. But right before y'all transitioned out, we came in. So, that's what I do, and love that I get to be here with you guys today.
Yes, come on out. And I think it's just really important for us to be able to sit down at a table and have a conversation. We're looking at this series, this thought process of being at a table. And I guess as I'm processing, even before now, but definitely in this moment with us sitting in this space, I wonder, why do you think it's so important for people to be able to gather around tables and be able to share life and experiences together?
Yeah. It's funny. I was kind of thinking through this idea earlier this week of we have a lot of touch points, but we don't have a whole lot of sticky areas. And having a meal, sitting at a table feels like one of those places where you're stuck for a minute, where when you're having a meal, you're going to be there for 30 minutes or you're going to be there for an hour.
Yeah.
And when you're in somebody's space for an hour, things come up. Conversations get had that wouldn't otherwise get had. And we need that because how else are we going to go deep with one another? How else are we going to really know who each other are? And so that's what I love about having meals together or sitting in what I like to call a sticky space, right?
Sticky space. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know about y'all, but I love food.
Come on.
I love to eat, and I feel like I'm one of those people when I eat, I'm dancing,
Come on.
It's an experience.
Wow, this is really good. And so I just think about how barriers drop when we're eating, and like I said, I'm gonna dance and sing, and then you're gonna ask me Zoe, why are you dancing and singing? You're what song is playing in your head? And maybe that opens the door to a deeper conversation. And so I think that food in itself, it's so good. I think it has the opportunity to, like you said, have us be stuck in a moment and then explore some things about people that we probably wouldn't necessarily give the time to, because time is valuable, right? Yeah. And how you spend it is important. And so maybe just giving an extra 30 minutes, hour to the person sitting across the table from me, that's where real life work happens. That's where real change happens. So yeah, the table is huge.
That's good.
I love that. I feel like it's harder to, if I'm being honest, I think it's harder in a table environment, face to face, to misconstrue each other's words, because you get to see people's intentions and their hearts. Yeah. If I'm looking at you in the face, you can't be well, you said so and so over text. And hey, calm down. You DM me and it's no, I didn't say that. That's not how I meant it. But my intentions can be felt and my spirit can be felt. You can feel what I actually mean by what I'm saying. And I think that's what makes tables so unique, and getting together around the table. And really, it's a lost art. We don't do it enough.
True.
I mean,
very true.
How often are we actually doing this in our homes? If we're thinking about it, I didn't necessarily grow up in a home where, we sat at the dinner table all the time. We sat around the TV. That was just a normal vibe. And I can't imagine now, I've got sisters, they're teenagers. And we do sit around the table, at this season of my family's, life, but the phones are out. It's just at what point, and my parents have been so good about being hey, put the phones away. This is intentional family time. So I love that that's the case. But for so many of us, that's not the case. We don't have that intentional time. So I think this space gives us the ability to be intentional with one another in a way that almost nothing else does.
Yeah.
Just slow down.
I wanted to piggyback what you just said, in the household that you grow up with these people, you see them every day, and it's hard to sit down with them. Yeah. So how much harder is it to sit down with the stranger that you meet in the lobby of your church, or the person that, walks past you in your office? You really have to be intentional. Yeah. So I like that you brought that up. That's really good.
Absolutely.
That's good. It's interesting to me too. I'm sitting here, I'm processing this as you're saying it, and the things that happen at the table in my house, and I cannot get my kids to tell me how their day at school was until we sit at the table. And if we're sitting there, they're I did this, I met this person. My daughter's I saw this boy on the playground, it was cute. I'm no, please don't. Help me out. It's too soon. You're 7. All this stuff. But it's all these things that it creates a level of vulnerability, it feels like, when you're sitting at a table, when you're having a meal, you're getting nourished, and you're like, all my guards come down, which is really good. It's kind of what we need. Yeah.
Just kind of spinning off the initial question about coming to the table, what do you guys think prevents us from coming to the table?
Oh, wow. Dang, that's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
I think fear, really. Like fear of getting an uncomfortable situation. Like so often it's easier just to come to the table with somebody that you know, or go to that place that you've always had the same food at. Like we are creatures of habit. And so we constantly don't want to risk anything. And saying hi to somebody or having a conversation with somebody that you aren't as familiar with can be scary sometimes. And so I think that probably keeps us from it.
I totally get that. I think there's a fear inherent in there. And it's something that I'm thinking about as you're talking is like, is it fear of what other people might think when I'm at that table?
Yeah.
So I think about Jesus when Levi throws a party and he invites them to his house. And it's just a bunch of sinners and tax collectors. And everybody's looking and they're just like, how could he sit down with those people? Like those are, of the day, the tax collectors were the worst of society. And so it's all of these sinners, and the Pharisees are looking on. They're like, what is Jesus doing? Like Jesus is breaking bread, having dinner, sitting down with people that he shouldn't be sitting down with if he calls himself a rabbi, if he calls himself a teacher. And I think it's that fear of being perceived as what will people say if I'm sitting down with people that don't agree with what I agree with politically? Or what will people say if I'm sitting down with people that don't agree with what I agree with socially? And how will they perceive me? How will my group or my clique or my little niche pocket that I fit in, how will they perceive me when I'm hanging out with someone that doesn't necessarily fit my mold?
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. My uncle told me when I was going into high school, he pulled me aside and he was like, listen, I want to tell you my biggest regret from high school. He said, I sat at a table meant for 4 with 8 of my closest friends while other people sat alone. And it's never left my mind. There's exactly that. We're afraid of who other people might associate us with if we do go and sit with the person who's alone, or we do go and sit with the person who's really different from us. And it's kind of tragic. Yeah. It's got me thinking too, what do you think would happen if we stepped into that? What do you think would happen? What do you think it would change either socially or even across the church if we stepped into some of those situations and sat across the table intentionally, having conversation with folks that maybe we wouldn't usually sit across from?
Yikes. No, I think we always bring this to our students often, hey, you're supposed to be the person engaging with the person that's considered the outcast or alone by themselves, because that's what Jesus did. And I think we can really walk into the heart of Christ when we do engage people who are different than us, because it just provides a different context. You are seeing something that somebody else might be going through their lens of life. And I think when you start to expose yourself to other perspectives, you build your capacity to have grace for people.
Let's go.
And so that is I think that is, it would be a huge game changer if, we're sitting at diverse tables, or we're sitting across the table with somebody who maybe believes a different thing than we do. I know it's they don't, believe in Jesus, so maybe I shouldn't be associating. But hey, no, how are they going to get to Jesus?
Amen. That's the thing.
Exactly. Unless we preach, unless we have that conversation. Right. And so I think that would be really a beautiful fruit that could come from coming to those tables.
That's so good. It's empathy. I think that's what's built ultimately when you're sitting at tables like that. There's an empathy built for people that don't think like you, look like you, act like you. If you're of that age, 18 plus, vote like you. It's these people that are different. And I think, if I'm being honest, I think there's a willingness there in the next generation, more than maybe I've seen in generations prior. There's that willingness to kind of jump into the murky waters of those conversations. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
Have you seen that kind of in your experience?
I think our kids are exposed to such broad concepts so early. And so especially with social media, my God, TikTok is just,
Yes.
it is monopolizing the world at this point. And so like our kids are getting exposed to a lot of concepts that aren't necessarily coming from the top down in their homes. And that could be a good thing and a bad thing. But I think it also brings just a different type of awareness to issues, political issues, ideologies that they're like, maybe we should branch out and consider or think about these things. When it's hinged and when it has the parameters of truth and what we see in the faith, I think that could be a really beautiful concept, a beautiful thing, a beautiful setup.
That's good.
That's good.
It's really good.
Is that what you're seeing at all? Like,
yeah,
the willingness to be able to sit and be in these conversations. Like, is there a shift taking place? Maybe I can ask that way.
I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful for a shift. I think we need one. I think we would all agree we need a shift, right? But there's, I call them tokens. Like, I know of a handful of people that I'm like, they get it. And I can see having these really diverse conversations. And the product of that is I see salvation. Like, they're leading people into it because it's the authentic reveals the fake, right? And so you see somebody who genuinely has empathy for someone and they want to know them and they want to share truths with them. And maybe it takes a month, maybe it takes a year, but it brings change. And you see that happen over time. And it's not you got to be this way or look this way or like do this thing. It's hey, I want to help reveal who you are in a deeper way. It's powerful. So yeah, I would say yes, I do see it. I think we got a long way to go.
There's more.
Yeah.
There's more. There's more.
There's more. There's so more.